Mr. Speaker, the Canadian Federation of Students Manitoba met with legislators all last week. Their representatives, Dana Hatherley and Hannah Jones, are with us today in the gallery. They are very concerned about the level of student debt. Tax exemptions they might get after graduation are not as important to students as the upfront costs and the burden that they will shoulder from their student loans. They have repeatedly asked this NDP government to consider eliminating the interest on student loans, and they have been getting no response. Why did the Premier ignore the students' recommendations in their recent budget?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Interest rates were reduced twice, prime plus a half, now prime. Mr. Speaker, bursaries have been increased. Tuition fees are the third lowest in the country, the lowest in the country for community colleges. The graduate tuition tax rebate allows a student to recover 60% of the money they invested in themselves or their family invested in them after they graduate from school, and they now can get it while they're in their third and fourth years as well, Mr. Speaker. They can have access to the graduate tuition tax rebate in years 3 and 4. They have among the lowest rates in the country, and we will continue to find ways to make education affordable. Our increase in post-secondary education this year, 2.5% for universities, highest in the country last year, and 2% for colleges, among the best in the country. Everywhere else in the country, post-secondary education has been slashed by Conservative governments. In Manitoba, we've maintained that funding and improved that funding, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, since 2009 in Newfoundland and Labrador, students have had their burden of interest rates removed from their provincial students' loans. Students in Prince Edward Island have also had their debt load lightened with interest-free loans since 2012. It can, and it is being done on the East Coast. We should know how it can be done here in Manitoba for our students. The students have not been able to get an answer from this government to this simple question. Has this NDP commissioned any cost analysis or impact studies to assess making student loans interest-free in Manitoba, and will the Premier table the report this week?
Mr. Speaker, we've taken a variety of measures to keep the cost of post-secondary education among the most affordable in the country. Just recently we announced $5,000 for everybody that hires an apprenticeship individual in Manitoba, and $1,000 for every new employer that takes on an apprentice. And in Manitoba, we want apprentices to get credit at colleges. We want college students to get advanced credit at universities so they can shorten the time that it takes for them to be able to get into a working job with good, strong credentials. Student funding is up. Money for universities is among the highest you've seen across the country. The tuition fees are among the lowest in the country. We've reduced the interest rates on student debt, and we've made it less necessary to take out a loan because we've improved bursaries in Manitoba, and we have a graduate tuition tax rebate program, the best in the country, which is available in the last 2 years of a student attending university, partially available to reduce the cost of them going to school. We will look for additional ways to keep university costs affordable for all people wanting to go to University of Manitoba, and we will ensure that Manitoba has a strong post-secondary system which is affordable, accessible, has good quality, and gets good results for young people in Manitoba.
Mr. Speaker, students need strong universities, funded to provide the resources for an optimal learning environment. In 2011, the government promised it would increase funding to universities by 5% each year for 5 years. Last year, the government broke its promise and cut that increase by 50%. This year, the government once again broke its promise, cutting the increase by 50%.
That's to be expected.
This is sadly just one more in a long line of the government's broken promises. When education is so important to help Manitobans and to provide a way out of poverty, why is the government repeatedly breaking its promise to universities and to students?
Speaker, I regret that I have to remind the member, when he was a member of the federal cabinet, they made the largest reductions to funding to post-secondary education in the history of the country, Mr. Speaker. They slashed funding for post-secondary education. It was a dramatic reduction. They slashed funding for research, Mr. Speaker. He was a member of the cabinet that made the decision to abandon post-secondary education as a federal responsibility in this country. It now is only 11% of the federal contributions to post-secondary education. That trend of removal of the federal government from supporting post-secondary education was started when the member from River Heights was a member of the federal cabinet. And today, he pretends to support education. When he had the chance, he cut it, Mr. Speaker. He did not support it.